Melis konuşmasında bahsetti. Artık cesur olmak zorundayız. Neden cesur olmak zorundayız? Biraz açmak için birkaç veri paylaşmak istiyorum sizinle. Benim çok hoşuma giden biraz da komik veriler. Ortalama tüketici günde 6.000-10.000 arasında mesaja maruz kalıyor. Bunu biliyoruz zaten. Dikkat süresi ise şu anda 8 saniyenin altına düşmüş durumda. Bir de odaklanma süresi ölçümleri var. Balık hafızalı deriz. Japon balıklarının çok fazla odaklanamaması ve hafızasında bilgileri tutamaması dolayısıyla Japon balıklarına. Efendim insanın odaklanma süresiyle Japon balığının odaklanma süresi şu anda aynı, 3 saniye. Yani Homo sapiens is the new Japon balığı. Dolayısıyla cesur olmaktan başka da alternatifimiz yok gibi. Çünkü bir şekilde o dikkati çok kıt bir dikkat çağında tutmak lazım. Bir de anlamlı olmak zorundayız. Şimdi bu yeni perspektiflerden o anlam hikayesini nasıl yaratabiliriz? Bunu konuşmak üzere aslında dünyanın inovasyon laboratuvarı olarak kabul edilen Asya-Pasifik pazarından gelen içgörülerle, global trendlerle MMA Apex CEO'su Rohit Dadwal bizlerle olacak. Shaping the Future of Marketing sunumuyla sahnede kendisi. Lütfen bana katılır mısınız? Kendisini alkışlayalım. With your big round of applause, please. Rohit Dadwal. Welcome. Hi.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, that's more like it. Great. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It was funny waking up at 7:30 in the morning in pitch dark. Where I come from, it's like bright and sunny in Singapore. But I was so looking forward to this trip. What I'm going to share with you over the next 20 minutes is a little bit about something that you don't already know, which is the change in advertising and marketing. But I'm going to focus a little bit more specifically about how we see that change in Asia Pacific. How many of you have been to Asia? Most of you. You think Asia is one continent? It's not. The fact that Asia is so big, by itself, it is very divided. When we look at advertising and marketing and the changes that are happening in the industry, it's not uniform across all markets. You have two big countries like China and India. What happens in those markets doesn't necessarily happen outside, but they're also the leaders. So they are these big behemoths. Then you have advanced countries like Korea and Japan, which are on a completely different spectrum of advancements, of maturity. You have developing markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and some others, where the emergence of technology, emergence of advertising and marketing is not that mature. But what is very interesting in this is, to give you a context, from a global scale, we are all part of that journey. And we see a lot of that journey around in Asia. For example, we all know there are 5.464 billion people online. 5.81 billion people have mobile phones. So there are more people who have devices and connectivity options than internet connections. And there's $768 billion which are spent on ads. $786 billion, which is about 77%, is spent on mobile. These are global stats, and I wanted to share these stats because I wanted to set the context. And out of that, about 250 billion is social media, and 200 billion is video. You know, what is interesting is, out of $1.4 trillion of advertising business, which has taken 100 years to be built, the two numbers here have happened only in the last 7 to 10 years. I don't know if you realize that. 40% of the advertising spends happens on social and video. Video truly started as an advertising medium only about 7 years back. Social, though it started about 2008, 2010, the advertising only started about 10 years back. And they already have the majority of the share of the advertising dollars. And what we see as a reflection of that is 50% of the users around the world are based in Asia. And what they are seeing is this change. The change in the marketing and advertising landscape, which is today driven by AI. It is all about the generative AI, the predictive AI, and so on and so forth. But more importantly, what you will see is that there is a fair amount of effort on the global brands. And there's a huge pressure to incorporate that change that is happening. People are making that change at the cost of certain assets. But there's, at the same time, investment that is happening in the technology which is going to help shape this change. Advertising and marketing, the way we know it, is fundamentally going to change, has started changing. It's no longer about the madmen of the 60s. It is very scientific based. And it's going to get more and more scientific. As Didim and Melis were saying, MMA's charter is to actually help shape that future. We are building the methodologies, etc. But what we've realized is that change is going to come from technology. And more importantly on that change is some of that technology and some of that change is actually happening in the East. It has changed from 10 to 15 years back, where West was helping drive that change. It is now starting to emerge in Asia. A lot of the change that you see, whether it's short form video, it started with TikTok, came from China. The social media, the behemoths of WeChat, etc., all came from Asia. The super apps, the Ubers, the Grabs, the Gojeks, and also the scale of connectivity that helped drive the adoption of that change was mobile, primarily from East. And when I say East, it's east of everything that is Europe. And that is where the scale and change is happening. And the social nature of that change is helping drive that. What we are also seeing is 65% of all shopping is actually now done on retail media. And it's going to grow. This is a new trend. The retail media as a term was coined in US. But the reality is, what we are seeing in Asia is social media and social commerce. We still call it retail media, but the penetration of modern trade is less than 7% in that part of the world. And so is the case in Turkey or other markets in this part of the world. And therefore, it is not about just the retail media as a term, but it's the social, the nature of the social media, the nature of the commerce that is enabled. We are going through a huge e-commerce change as we know of. How many of you have heard quick commerce? Yeah. Quick commerce in India, for example, garners 50% of all e-commerce, and this is only in 2 years. 50% of all e-commerce is now quick commerce. You can imagine the speed at which this is growing. And the fact that the whole narrative of discovery, brand awareness, intent, purchase, those cycles are changing. Quick commerce has nothing to do with awareness right now. It is just delivery. It is just the intent and purchase. So how, as marketeers, you get ready for these changes? These changes, while are being developed by marketeers themselves, all of you in the room, but it's led by the consumer. They are the ones who are adopting this change faster than we, as the industry, can keep pace with it. The whole aspect of e-commerce, in-app shoppable commerce, the entertainment commons, etc. But all of that comes at a huge cost because we are still grappling with this thing called privacy. And data privacy for us is a huge concern. As more and more technology evolves, privacy becomes a paradox. We want more, but we need to give less. And what we are seeing in Asia is that the whole change of understanding of the values of regulation. Compared to the West, East has never been good with regulations. There was till 5 years back, nobody even bothered about data privacy. There were no laws. GDPR was the first privacy-related document Asia saw. And we are now starting to adapt some of those documents and started to care for those changes. The second thing is the first-party data, the zero-party data. The measurement is going to become more and more challenging. We all believe in first-party data. But the fact is, the consumer believes in zero-party data. The zero-party data is going to be the enabler for privacy and for data, because that is something which is going to be anonymous. You are not going to own that piece of the customer, because the customer wants and demands more privacy. Oh, sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button. Okay, so just to give you a quick background on what we spoke, mobile is the true culture. We still feel and see mobile as the main culture. Super apps, which are WeChat, Line, Gojek. Gojek is Uber of Asia. Grab is the Uber of Asia. They are starting to build this whole new dynamic and space for brands to survive and live in. Most of Asia, whether it's China, Japan, Korea, they are starting to build brands within these platforms, within these super apps, the payment gateways. They are enabling and fast-tracking that. And mobile definitely still drives the behavior and the consumption. PC is leading that or is enabling that, but the driving factor is still mobile. And mobile, within the super apps, within the gateways, within the Ubers, within the WeChats, payment gateways, etc., is driving that. The second thing that is happening with that is this emergence of this whole new platform or media platforms. Connected TV, gaming, podcast, all of these are starting to emerge from a local cultural aspect. We've known podcasts, we've known connected TV, gaming, but these are all now becoming very central to the local culture and conversations. It is no longer about mass appeal. It is about the consumer's intake on making sure that they are able to drive that consumption to yield the results for the marketeers. What happens in that is this whole new marketing flux. We as marketeers, we as industry, are going through these challenges. When you have so many new platforms, so much new media, so much new technology, what do? You try and survive that. To survive that, you have to invest in that, which means you are putting pressure on your budgets. The mandate on innovation keeps on exceeding because you need to keep on trying, testing, learning, failing, and so on and so forth. And then this whole discussion about brand versus performance. Am I spending money on brand? Am I spending money on performance? Is it sales which is driving it? But they cannot exist in isolation. They need to work with each other. And commerce. Because everything on the digital media can be measured, and commerce actually helps us drive that. That enables this thing, what we say is the whole dynamic change of the social platforms. People are going mainstream. For example, in China and Korea, we have Taobao, Temu, as you know, which is popular here, is starting to drive a lot of this commerce enabled, which is seamless, which is connected from the experience, from the intent to purchase. And it is driven a lot more about influence. But the important part here is the terminology of influencers is also changing. The influencers that we were established, or what was called influencers, is not what is happening in Asia. Creators are now the new influencers. Do you know how many videos get uploaded in China on a daily basis by creators? Any guess? Any guess? 5 million? 150 million videos every day by creators. This is an economy which only knows 50 people in their circle, 50 people on WeChat, 50 people on Facebook, 50 people on TikTok, Instagram, etc. That's their circle. That's the creator economy that is starting to emerge. Because there's trust and authenticity in that. And the whole aspect of that trust and authenticity helps drive this thing which we call the brand accounts. Because I trust my neighbor, I trust my friend. I don't necessarily trust the actor who is paid to influence me. And with all that change, with all that ability of building trust, is this whole new community which is called the private community, which is starting to emerge. The whole aspect of smart chatbots, agents, working with these private communities to get them the best results, get them the best deals, is like an affiliate program. A lot of you, when you were growing up, may have heard of the Amway program. Sell to your neighbor and neighbor will sell to their family. That's what is happening, but in the digital avatar. And all of this is driven by frameworks. You have to ensure that these frameworks, which are regulations, which need to be put in place, privacy concerns, and so on and so forth. And we have to start, and we have seen in Asia, is this need from consumers to say, if you want my data, what do you give me in return? We've heard about this, we've spoken about this, that the consumer will become smart. But that is actually what we are seeing today. That is why the zero-party data will be very important as we move forward. The whole experience is very seamless. Now we are looking at this discovery, research, purchase, loyalty, which is not going through the fundamental channel of marketing, the funnel, top-down funnel. It is from intent to purchase, discovery to purchase. These channels are changing. These channels are changing based on a lot of the elements of the ability of technology, one-tap QR links and social media, entertainment, and so on and so forth. And that is also being influenced a lot by the culture, the localization, the content, the fact that there is a lot more grassroots local content and stories. This is where I come back to creator economy, which is very specific to the need. In Asia, last year, actually, when we say last year, it's March to April. 880 beauty brands were launched, as per the survey. 400 of them died in the first 2 weeks. First 2 weeks. 200 of them survived for 6 months. And 60 of them have survived an year. And they have taken lion market share out of the leaders like L'Oreal and others. Why? Because it's culturally, content-wise, specifically focused on the grassroots, being provided and enabled by the local content, the desire to have something which is customized to themselves. So what we see here is that we need to have a purpose and sustainability that is driven by technology. It is something that we are seeing can be enabled by a lot of the conversations. And this is the conversational aspect of the local content and the culture that is driving these experiences. But it also comes at a very critical time when there's these paradoxes. As an industry, we want data privacy, consumers want data privacy, but they want to be served better. So how do you give them privacy? They want seamless experiences, but they also want authenticity. These are paradoxes that don't work with each other. They also want AI, but they want it to be with human touch. These are challenges that we have to be aware of. And consumers will also understand these paradoxes. While they want privacy, they want better experience. They don't want to talk to AI, but they want to talk to AI, but they also want better human connection. And so is the case with the marketeers. We all have been through that and will go through that. But the biggest challenge there is of being able to learn, adapt. Because if we don't, we go through this challenge of being irrelevant. We've seen this in the media business, retail business, telecom, and also in transportation. These are examples of the last 10 to 15 years. I'm not citing anything here which is more than 20 years back. We have huge industries which have changed, have been killed as businesses. And that is something, all these change that is happening will be enabled. So there are strategic imperatives that we are seeing in Asia which needs to be enabled. Whether it's data with AI and AI, the combination of that from a generative AI or a predictive AI, the whole aspect of empathy. Because when you are going to be so much more involved with technology, there is an aspect of empathy which the technology doesn't have. And culture and social values need to drive that. It needs to supersede some of that. Agility and skills, something we need to adapt. We need to be quick to understand, build capabilities around it, and obviously, no one can do that in isolation. It has to be all very collaborative. And that, to me, is the most important aspect of the evolution that is going to go through, the evolution of being able to shape that future as we see, because it's going to be a lot more driven by the technology as we see. I think Didim and Melis have done a great job on talking about what MMA does. So this slide is mostly mute from my perspective. But the most important message here is, look at an industry body as a catalyst. We are helping put some of those frameworks and seeds and look at leveraging that. Because once you do that, you are in a position to actually help shape that, learn from that, participate in a collaborative manner to build this change that we are seeing. And this change, while is happening in Asia today, is going to be very quick because the learning curve and the adoption curve is no longer 10 years and 5 years, it's few months. Creator economy, as I said, has gone from 0 to 150 million uploads in a day in China in roughly about 6 months' time after DeepSeek was launched. DeepSeek launch was only about 18 months back. You can imagine what will happen post now, once more and more LLMs are established. So it is really a collaborative nature that we need to all work with. We need to ensure that we are able to do that across markets. We do that across China and India, Indonesia and Japan. That collaboration, those learnings have to come together to help us shape that future. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I hope you found this useful. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rohit Dadwal, thank you very much, Rohit. Çok teşekkür ederiz. Çok sağ olun.